A Hall of Fame coach is raving about Vandy's new all-in approach. Let's get it.
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Today, we're going to react to comments made by one John Calipari stating that he is impressed, go on to rave about the commitment that Vanderbilt's admin is putting into basketball. He uses the term all in. Does this just apply to basketball? I don't think it does. I'll tell you why in a little bit. In football, seems to be good news, bad news right now. The good news is that the cornerback may be the deepest room in the defense. Transfers are bolstering that depth. They're providing a lot of great reps and a lot of great looks to really try to evaluate this wide receiver group. So that's one of the peripheral benefits of having that group be so good. The bad news is that college scouting department is now in search of a new director. Harper is departing to USF. How are they going to regroup? Who are they going to hire? Is there a certain Locked On Vandy host that would be good in that role? I don't know. Anyway, back to hoops though. Is Tuesday night's game the blowout 90-77 victory Arkansas had? Is that concerning heading into a matchup in Athens against the Bulldogs? I don't know. It's probably too early to hit the panic button, but again, we'll discuss that a little bit further later. So thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Stay with us for the Armada team of the week later in the episode. So here's the thing, okay? Obviously, John Calipari is the new head coach at Arkansas, University of Arkansas. They were in town, and I think he was in town earlier this summer as well. But he made some comments that I think are a little bit telling about this administration. And usually when you say it and you frame it like that, it's not good. But I think this is good, and I think the way things went in football, the way things are going in basketball right now, and the way things seem to be going in baseball, although that weekend trip out west is leaving a bad taste, I think things are looking up in the sport of baseball as well. I think they hit a little rough patch, but they're still working through some of that stuff. You know, basketball went through the same thing, but they got hot at the right time. So here's the quote that I'm talking about. Okay. You know, they did their normal pregame stuff. They were raving, you know, they played at the same university in basketball. A little story behind that. They played at the same university in basketball, and, you know, they like to joke with each other about that. And, you know, they do the whole compliment war. No, he was great. No, he was great. No, he's got all the records. He beat all my records, and, you know, you know, that kind of thing. So, but this comment really kind of stood out to me from Coach Calipari. Cal said the commitment they've made here to basketball is showing and coming through. Calipari said, he continued, my hat is off. Administrations win championships. Basketball coaches can win games, and you've got to be all in. It's got to be everybody, and it appears that everybody is all in right now. And he's talking about the administration. He's talking about the staffs. He's talking about the players. He's talking about everything. And what stands out to me about this is that that's what you need. And I don't know if they've been I don't know if they've been like that or if they're just starting to kind of learn and you know, you've got some new ideas coming through. You've got a new age of college athletics, and Vanderbilt's going to fall very, very far behind if they don't get with the time. So maybe, you know, the way of the college athletics world has kind of forced their hand a little bit. Whatever the case may be, this new change, realizing that, hey, we can actually be a player in this NIL game because we're in the city of Nashville. We've got a great collective. We've got a city that's rooting for us to succeed. Maybe we need to help out. And whatever sparked that, I don't know. Maybe it was the abysmal run of football and basketball, your two front porch sports, to your university. Maybe that's what happened. I don't know. But whatever it is, I like it. I like it. Here's kind of a brief rundown, I think, of, you're probably asking yourself, well, how have they supported? Because I know there's been a lot of bad, I guess, ill feelings towards what Candace Story-Lee's been doing and this administration has been doing with certain things with what you feel like the lack of support and all that stuff. And I don't know, but recently, I think things have been on the up and up. I think somebody has gotten through to somebody that has gotten through to Candace Story-Lee, or I'm not real sure exactly what it is. I can't pinpoint it. But here are some, I don't want to call them symptoms because that has a negative connotation, but here are kind of like, I guess, the symptoms of what seems to be going really, really well for this athletic department and making us a competitive group. So, first of all, First Bank Stadium renovations and the admin's willingness to now commit to facility upgrades. They did it with McGugin Center. They've done it now with First Bank Stadium. They're doing it with this whole athlete village thing where they're just really just making the whole environment for athletics really, really good. The South End Zone is going to house amenities for athletes that they can take advantage of during the day. And then, of course, those amenities will then shift to the fan experience on game day. And I think those amenities will extend to the Hawk, too, during baseball season. So I'm not real sure. I'm not completely positive on that. Don't quote me there. But it's going to be good nonetheless. They're going to get it. So First Bank Stadium renovations, top notch. They realize that, hey, we're not LSU. I think the smart thing is that they realize, and they didn't try to be LSU or Tennessee or Alabama and try to build this 100,000 seat mega house, because you know what would happen there. It wouldn't fill up with Vandy fans just yet. I mean, it may eventually, but they just realized, I think, that that's not what they're all about. They want to make this a great environment, and they want to make this an environment that's unique. That's kind of been their brand, unique, a unique identity. Basketball has shown that unique identity. Football has shown that unique identity. Baseball established it a long time ago. They kind of got away from it a little bit, but they've had their identity as well. So the stadium is going to be top notch. When they finish the South End Zone, it's going to be first class. And they've been efficient, and I got to knock on some wood real quick. Knock on wood. Hold on. Knock on wood. All right. Knock on this wood behind me. But these stadium renovations have been great. Everyone's been raving about the North End Zone and been super impressed with that. And so, it's been a huge deal. It's been great. And they're finally starting to take care of the things that are going to attract top level people, right? The Huber Center for basketball, second to none. The practice facilities for men's and women's hoops are top notch again. The weight room, the training facilities, you have all these recovery rooms that have like hot tubs, cold tubs. The athletic training facilities, great. The weight room, you could fit, I think Coach Cal said in that article as well, you could fit 9 different teams in there at once. I mean, the weight room is huge. They've got plyometric areas. They've got a basketball hoop that you can practice free throws as part of your workout. They've got 12 racks, one for every player to have their own rack, which I don't know about that, but you need a spotter. But again, it's huge and it's super nice. The practice gym again is super nice. They've got great offices and meeting spaces and locker room spaces and all that stuff. So it's been tremendous. It's been a tremendous upgrade for them. And then, of course, commitment to NIL, portal recruiting, staff building, all that stuff, any sort of thing in personnel support. I think, the administration has been 100% behind Vandy on that, like especially with NIL. I think accepting portal recruits. I think this is the most portal recruits that baseball's ever had. Basketball, they had to build a completely new roster, which I don't think they really had a choice in letting basketball kind of have their way. But they've been taking guys, that have orange flags, which they don't usually do. Maybe even a guy or two that has a red flag. Staff building. I mean, the example that I can probably support the most, because I'm not real sure how basketball staffs are created as far as just beyond the coaches. So I can't really speak to that. I feel like they've been able to get every coach they wanted and the personnel that they need from a scouting perspective, from a recruiting perspective, and from a overall basketball operations perspective. I think they've gotten everybody that they need. Tim Corbin was able to go out and hire the guys that he needed for the baseball program to run efficiently, and for football, everything. Football, college football, shifting to an NFL model. It just is. That's what's happening. It's shifting to an NFL model, and an NFL model has two separate scouting departments that act under, obviously the same scouting umbrella, but like two different departments within that umbrella. You have two different staffs that are kind of being built. And so you have to, when you construct that, you have to be able to, get with the times and all that stuff. And if you're going to play in a league that's acting like the NFL, as far as everything that they do, you got to compete. And Vanderbilt's allowed themselves to do that. And being able to build the scouting staff the way they need to, a group that focuses on portal and a group that focuses on high school, because that's in the NFL, that's pro scouting and college scouting, right? It's the same model, right? They've been able to hire top-notch quality analysts to come in as support roles. Now that the coaching restriction limits have been lifted, they can have as many guys coaching on the field as they want. So it leaves you to be able to get guys like Jerry Kill, Bob Shoop, and all these analysts that they're hiring. Those are the two that stand out the most. But all of these analysts and off the field guys that they're hiring, they're able to hire those guys because they can afford to pay them. The administration is, they are starting to buy into what these sports want to do. And I'm not sure about the other sports, the I don't want to say smaller sports, but all the sports are important. But like women's soccer is, they're succeeding. They're getting better. They're getting what they need. Women's basketball has the SEC Freshman of the Year on their team, so they're able to now support Coach Ralph and what she wants to do, and hopefully that pays off with a deep tournament run for the women's team. And then, of course, the big three, as they call it, basketball, football, baseball, or whatever order you want to put it in, football, basketball, baseball. They're able to function at a high level. So very exciting with that, and as they continue to grow, this is very early on in this new all-in approach. I don't know, like I said, I'm not real sure what the spark was. And sure, there's a lot of examples you can point to where there's a lot of naysayers out there. They're going to be like, well, it's not really all in. It's, it's the illusion and this, that, and the other are things that aren't good with this administration. And sure, there's not going to be everything. I'm not saying it's like 100% phenomenal, but I like the idea that they're moving towards being more all in and supporting these coaches and supporting these teams. And that's kind of all you really look for. The stadium experience stuff, you just got to give feedback and hope that it gets better. I think they're trying. I'm not real sure. The success rate is probably not great. There's probably a million things they could do better, right? But the fact of the matter is this: they are making an effort to make things better, and they can only chip away at it. They can only do a few things at a time. They can't. Everything's not going to be great all at once. It's got to come as a progression, and they're getting there. But I'm just glad they finally realize it. I'm just glad that it's showing a little bit. I'm glad that other people outside of the program, it's showing enough for other people outside of the program to be able to recognize, hey, this administration is different. It ain't the same old Vandy, right? And so that's all that matters, really. So, but anyway, for football, after day one of spring, the cornerback position seems very poised to excel. What does that mean? Well, you're going to have to stay locked on to find out. All right, but first, talking about Nissan, the Armada Team of the Week. It's brought to you by our friends at Nissan and the all-new 2025 Nissan Armada. Each week, our Locked On college basketball experts are picking one team that stands apart. From the top-seeded stars to the unexpected upsets, these guys showcase the strength and sheer power needed to push their team forward. This week's Armada clear-cut Team of the Week are the Houston Cougars. That's right. Since joining the Big 12 this season, the Cougars have gone a combined 33-4 in conference games, winning the regular season title by multiple games both years. There's no team in college basketball that more capably embodies the rugged Armada than Kelvin Sampson's squad. Houston's tenacious defense leads the nation in fewest points allowed per game for the second straight season. So when it comes to the Nissan Armada, they say go forth and conquer. That's exactly what the Houston Cougars have done here. So it's clear that our Team of the Week is out there ready to conquer the road ahead with confidence, just like you can in the all-new Nissan Armada or any of Nissan's outstanding vehicles. So take the Nissan Armada, Rogue, or Pathfinder. Go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. And while you're at it, send one my way. You can buy me one. I'll be completely okay with that. All right, welcome back. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. Thank you for joining us, especially you everydayers. I really appreciate you guys. No doubt about it. Without you, this wouldn't be possible. So if you need a second listen, though, Locked On SEC is the place to go. Chris Gordy does a phenomenal job. He covers everything, every topic, no stone unturned when discussing the greatest conference in all of the land. And if you need a third listen, if you need a more specific listen, if you want another team to go take a listen to, if you just want to hear a good sportscaster because that's like you're at work and you just want to hear somebody good, Stephen Willis at Locked On Ole Miss is definitely one of your better options. He's the most listened to Ole Miss podcast for a reason, so make sure you go check him out. But anyway, talk football. That's just what I like to do. I like to talk football, okay? Talking cornerbacks. And this is exciting because when you watch this team a year ago, this group made you want to pull your hair out. I mean, it was unreal just how frustrating it was at times with this group. You know, against Georgia State, you get left on an island, one-on-one, you get toasted, right? Let's see what else. Against Luther Burden, that's a tough ask, but again, you get beat deep over the top. You get some stupid personal foul penalties. You get some, lack of communication where you drive down on a slant route and something goes behind you. Just knowing the concepts and where you're supposed to be seemed to kind of be a problem with this group last year. And I felt like this was one of the biggest areas of improvement for this defense was the cornerbacks. They ranked 105th nationally, actually, by allowing 7.9 yards per pass, which was a 10th better than what they did in their miserable 2-10 season. So the pass defense probably most aptly judged by the corners, not solely, but more aptly judged by the corners. But it's here's the thing. Vandy's going to be better against the run. They're going to be better with quarterback pressure. That usually helps. But here's two names that I really like that are going to be back in the fold that weren't in the fold for medical eligibility reasons, whatever. There's a lot of reasons. But Mark Davis and Marlon Jones should be back. They're ready to roll. And they are good. Davis is rejuvenated after re-injuring his Achilles tendon last summer. So that was a huge blow. And Jones, well, he was diagnosed with cancer, and he was never able to enroll because of that. They're both with the team now and will practice a little bit this spring, probably trying to just kind of ease back in because there's not really any reason to rush for these guys. But you will see that. And so this is, with workouts and things, they're really starting to shine. And I think the leadership aspect of it and just them being able to help bolster that group and just make that group tough is going to be really, really beneficial for them. Davis He transferred in from Southern Illinois by way of Buffalo. And, Jones is from Eastern Washington. He was one of FCS top corners in 2023. So it's, I'm really, really good here with this group. I'm really excited that, kind of one of those byproducts from this position group is the fact that the offensive side of the ball needs to, I think the corners are going to get a lot of great work because the offense really needs to push and evaluate this group of receivers. And in doing so, there's going to be a lot of one-on-one reps. There's going to be a lot of competition here. One-on-ones, 7-on-7s, half field, situational stuff, full team, 11-on-11 type stuff. There's going to be a lot of work for these corners. And this is going to be a phenomenal thing because they got a little bit of competition last spring, but not really much. And then, by fall camp, it was, the reps hadn't really built up. You didn't really know receiver-wise, you didn't really know cornerback-wise, you didn't really know what you had. Davis went down in the summer with his Achilles, and that was a major blow to this group. And you were trying to just figure out what you were going to do. Not saying that people can't get injured in the spring, because they absolutely can, but you're going to have a lot of time to evaluate this group. And with this competition, this can only improve this group. This can only improve this team because competition is the thing that sharpens iron the best, right? If you're going grueling matchups with Joseph McVay, who can take the lid off of just about any defense, you've got, a big body Chance Fitzgerald, who I think needs to really kind of settle in, but I think he also needs to understand what he brings to the table, what his role is. He may not be a starter. He may never be a starter. That's okay. If he can come in, provide some catches, and, I don't think he has top-notch speed, but, I think physically he looks the part. But you got Junior Sherrill doing some things out of the slot and doing some things on the outside that I think that these guys are going to have a hard time with. There's going to be some situations to where they're going to have to communicate on some combos, because I think this offense is going to be a little bit more advanced this year. So it's going to force these corners and to communicate with safeties, to communicate with each other, to really be able to defend the different route combinations that are going to be thrown at them. They're going to have to communicate with formation shifts and motions and things like that. They're going to be an expert on teams that move a lot pre-snap, because I think Vandy's going to show a lot of that. And so this is exciting. This is good. This is a good thing. And a lot of people are kind of worried about this group, and I'm not, because when you have the group that you're going to be competing with a lot, having to evaluate guys, you're going to get a lot of competitive reps. It ain't just drill work, guys. There are going to be a lot of competitive reps, not just the spring game, not just 11-on-11 scrimmages. They're going to get a lot of competition work. And sometimes they may even work against themselves. I don't know. There's going to be a lot of room for good evaluation and for them to really kind of improve as a unit. So I'm excited. This pass defense is going to improve, and I'm really good about that. So this cornerback room, transfers, they got a lot more depth. Martell Height is even coming back. Colby Taylor, what is he going to look like year two? I know he had a rough year one for the most part, but surely he's going to improve as well. So just keep an eye on that. Throughout spring practice, you're going to see this group really kind of start to take off. But let's switch gears back to basketball. We started off kind of basketball. It was sparked by basketball. Maybe it turned into more of an all sports conversation. But anyway, we're back to basketball. And Tuesday's blowout loss. They lost 90-77. I'm not going to really break down that game. There's not much to break down, as ugly as it was. Is it overly concerning, or is it too early to panic? Who knows? We'll talk about it next. We'll break it down, sort of. All right, wrapping up the show here, Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen. I promise you, you everydayers are amazing. I'm with you. I'm glad you're with me. And let's make this thing really, really good. At Locked On Vandy on all social media platforms. Follow it. It's been kind of a busy week wrapping up the third quarter at school. So I haven't been posting as much, but I will get back to that, I promise. And I'll be a little bit more consistent as we move forward. But thanks for making us your first listen each and every day. Spread the word. It's great. It's great to be here. So Switching gears back to basketball, because Vandy's poised to make a tournament run. And if they're going to make a tournament run, if they're going to do this, there's some things they got to fix. And, some things reared its ugly head. And those things happen, and the first thing we have to realize is this: when we just look at this singular game and just kind of heap all of our concerns into this one performance, we have to understand the fact in the context of the game. Okay, Arkansas played like a team that had their backs against the wall. They're fighting for their tournament lives. Okay, we knew, everyone in the world knew that they were going to come out like that. Okay. And Vandy played like a team that is satisfied just because they're essentially in. So to give you an analogy, it's a food analogy because why not, right? It's a food analogy. So Arkansas is the team that is having to hustle to get their next meal. All right. That big old buffet lies ahead, and they have to fight through, and they have to get through so many doors and jump through so many hoops just to get a plate at the buffet. All right. Now, Vandy has essentially gotten their first appetizer. They don't have the full plate yet. They're not there. Nobody's at the buffet yet. All right. But there's teams that have eaten their first and second courses, like Auburn, they're getting ready for their main course and getting ready to tackle the main buffet. Vandy has eaten their appetizer, but they're not quite there to their second course. Like Arkansas is just fighting to get in the building. They're just waiting in line to get in the building. And with that comes a little bit of desperation. They're going to be like, hey, what do we need to do to make sure we get inside? Right? Vandy was a little bit satisfied because now they're in, right? So that's kind of the mentality they had going in this game. So of course, the number one thing was sloppy, lack of focus. Like it was a late tip off. It was a 9 p.m. Central tip. It was 9 p.m. local time tip. That's a late game. So there's a lot of lack of focus here. Of course it was going to be sloppy. We all knew it was going to be sloppy. And Jason Edwards was awful. This was probably his worst game. Jalen Carey hit a wall. They're exhausted. They're not focused. They're satisfied because now they feel like they've achieved all their goals. And this was a big, giant slap in the face, right? It's a team that's not quite mature enough to be able to handle this kind of thing, right? This is a learning experience for them, and that's okay. Here's the thing. I asked the question before the break. Is it overly concerning or is it too early to panic? It's too early to panic, right? Because the context of the situation leads me to believe that it's just not a huge deal. It didn't affect their tournament chances. It just meant that, hey, this team is not quite mature enough to be able to handle the highs and lows. They're just not there yet. And that's okay. This is a learning experience, like I said. And so they've got to learn now how to regroup, and they got a tough trip to Athens, and they've got to learn how to regroup. And I'll preview that game more specifically on the next episode. But, it's just a matter of, okay, all right, now we've got to figure out a way. One of the biggest hurdles, which oftentimes leads into the second half collapse. It kind of just, you can kind of see it coming. It's like a freight train almost. But the late first half stretch, okay, that is something that is freaking awful, right? They usually come out of the gates tough, and then let's like the last 3 minutes just seem to be abysmal. Happened against Ole Miss. It happens against every team, where the other team just gets back in. They stupid turnovers, bad shot selection. They get out rebounded. They can't score. They can't defend all of a sudden, and they just play like completely discombobulated. And that's probably out of this game. That's probably the most long-term concerning thing that I can think of. The other stuff, they got beat on the boards. They weren't focused. They played sloppy, all that stuff. But the late first half collapses, the late first half stretch, it's been a thing for a while. So that's the most long-term concerning thing, moving into tournament play, because it gets a little more desperate. And so I kind of worry that this desperation mode could cause this team to lose focus and they just do things out of character as far as turning the ball over and things like that. So anyway, but good news is they got one more regular season game left against Georgia. And it's in Athens. They have a chance to kind of regroup and collect themselves and get some positive momentum heading into the SEC tournament next week, right here in Nashville, right down the road. And so this is good. This is good for them. And then, we'll see kind of where the NCAA wants to seed and see what they want to do with Vanderbilt. If they get shellacked against Georgia and shellacked in the first round of the SEC tournament, they might be closer to being a bubble team and out than they wanted to be. But, they'll take care of business. They'll probably, you'll see them in the NCAA tournament and it'll be all good. So anyway, well, until next time, we're going to get you ready for the weekend, and then got something big on the horizon for next week. So stay tuned for that. I think you guys will enjoy this. I think you guys will enjoy what I have coming up soon, and that'll be a lot of fun. But anyway, we'll see you back here next time. Locked on Vandy. Thanks for listening. Anchor down. Peace out.